Lawmakers returning to Capitol Hill in less than 2 weeks, facing a critical race against the clock to prevent a government shutdown before the end of next month. D.C. Councilmember Christina Henderson says discussions are ongoing with congressional appropriators to avoid a repeat of the last shutdown, which cost the district nearly $1 billion in budget authority. Joining me now is South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman. He's a member of the House Budget and Financial Services Committees. Congressman, what are your thoughts with 2 weeks left in the recess? Obviously, when you get back to Washington, this is going to be the first order of business.
Yeah, it is, Cheryl. And if you look at the history, I would assume it's going to be another continuing resolution, which no one likes, military particularly, because those who are in the middle of leases and firms that are supplying not just the military, but you know, we got the Farm Bill, we've got DOD, Department of Defense. So I would assume it's going to be another CR, and I think it'll barely pass in the House, probably the Senate as well. I do not expect a shutdown. Okay, well, no, that is certainly good news, especially for this the budget issues in the district, because they've got a lot of other issues right now. The president is stepping up his use of executive authority on crime. So yesterday, busy day at the White House, you might have noticed. He signed 2 executive orders targeting cashless bail in D.C. and across the country. The orders threaten to revoke federal funding from jurisdictions that allow this practice. The president also signed an order banning the burning of the American flag, warning those who desecrate the flag that they will get a year in jail. Congressman, I want to get your reaction in particular to the issue of cashless bail, because you know, we've seen this from the president before. He says that he wants to see crime in these mostly blue cities cleaned up, hence the discussion about the National Guard, which we have seen a positive effect in Washington, D.C. Cheryl, he's doing the right thing. I mean, President Trump is right to want to protect Americans. He's putting America first, particularly in the nation's capital. You got to remember, you know, you had a city council under Mayor Bowser that wanted to register, wanted to let those who visit Washington vote. They wanted to let illegals vote. And the fact that the cashless bail for rapists, for those hijackers, for murderers, it's beyond comprehension that would even be a question. He's doing the right thing for this country, and he's right to cut the funding off any municipality or state that has cashless bail, as well as sanctuary cities, which make no sense. And you know, let the left complain. Let them, you know, talk about our people's rights. What about those who are killed? What about those who are hijacked? He's doing the right things, and as he's always done, he puts America ahead of everything else. And if we're not safe, then that's kind of a basic that we ought to feel that we're safe in any city, and it's not true in Washington, D.C.
We're going to get into this more during the show, but what do you make of President Trump's taking aim at Chicago next? And obviously there's a big discussion about whether or not the National Guard, they have to be invited. But at the same time, there's something I couldn't believe. The Chicago Tribune reports that over the past 60 years, get this, more than 40,000 men, women, and children have been murdered in the city of Chicago. More than 1 million wounded, most of them black, thousands of them innocent bystanders, including hundreds of children. That statistic really shocked me, because if you listen to the mayor of Chicago, there's nothing to see here.
Well, it's something to see for those victims. It's something to see that mother and father who are losing a child. It's something to see for those families who are being totally disrupted, and those young children raped at every level. No, it's the politicians are tone deaf in Chicago. It's always led the country in homicides. It's always led the country in just crime in general. As well as voter integrity. So he's right to do that. And you notice the Americans as a whole support President Trump. It's the liberal left and the liberal media who continue to be unhappy with everything he does. But I'm so happy he's not listening to them. He's blazing ahead, and he's doing what's right for this country at the right time.
So you support National Guard troops in these cities if it comes to that?
Absolutely. I mean, why not? I mean, the fact that the crime speaks for itself. The numbers speak for themselves. You mentioned Chicago. Look at Los Angeles. Look at New York City. I mean, let the politicians complain about those who want to keep them safe. I wonder if it happened to their particular family, if they would be singing this off the same sheet of music. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I agree. As someone that lives in one of these cities here in New York, President Trump is planning to sue California over its plans to redraw the congressional lines. The redistricting fight escalating, obviously, before next year's midterms. Down in Texas, Republicans filing 3 bills aimed at preventing quorum breaks after Texas House Democrats fled the state to avoid a vote on the redistricting map. The House bill bans fundraising during a quorum break. The Senate bill vacates a lawmaker's seat after 7 unexcused absences. And the House Joint Resolution lowers quorum requirement from 2/3 to a simple majority. Congressman, what is your reaction to these different moves that are being made?
Look, the president is putting in place things that make common sense to the everyday American. We know California is a cesspool. You talk about redistricting, they do it all the time anyway. We need to do it here in South Carolina on the 6th district. There's no magic. You can do it at any time, no 10-year time frame for that. So, again, he's doing what's right for the people. They don't deserve what the politicians under Gavin Newsom have done and continue to do. So, you know, he's stepping in when the politicians there, the elected officials, are not stepping in. So, again, he's making the right call.
I want to get your take on this issue of the blue slip tradition. And this is something that the president has highlighted. He's had some choice words for not just Democratic senators, but also for some that like Senator Chuck Grassley, for not reforming this policy. And basically what this comes down to is President Trump is very frustrated that he's got so many nominations that are just sitting there. And in particular, when it comes to judicial nominations, if one Democratic senator votes against it, then that nomination dies. We saw that in New Jersey with the nomination of Alina Habba, which Trump had to withdraw. What do you make of this push now from the White House to change that tradition for the future?
Well, he's frustrated, and he's got every right to be frustrated. Look, 77 million people voted for him to be president and to make the selection for judges. And for senators who, you talk about redistricting, you talk about protecting them going back in office, that's top priority, and it shouldn't be. He has a right to elect the judges that he wants and not be stonewalled. And I can see how he's frustrated, and it shouldn't happen. And redistricting ought to take place and let these senators face the music with the voters and not gerrymander the lines like has been done in the 6th district in South Carolina.
And the Democrats were doing it, and the Republicans, it's both sides here at the end of the day. Congressman Ralph Norman, it's always great to speak with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right.